Hey, Renee. And actually, out of curiosity, so who do we have on the call today? So could you just give me like where you're calling in from and what type of business you run? Oregon, nice, welcome. And we have Seattle, a wax bar, that's awesome. I think we have some people dropping in as we talk. I see the count going up. California, amazing. Baltimore, welcome everyone. So, ciao Bella, Orange County. Okay, so we're gonna get going. People are gonna drop in as we go. And so what we're gonna talk about today is forms, and in particular the integrated forms feature that exists inside Mangomint. And so seeing that we have some wax bars, I'm gonna see if I can use some of those examples as we go through. But just before we get to that, I thought I'll just introduce myself shortly. This is actually the first time I'm running this Feature Spotlight webinar. As you might not have seen my face before, and I joined the company or joined Mangomint fairly recently, where my job and my role is to work on content and community. So essentially doing these kind of things, trying to create as many valuable resources as possible, from a content standpoint, also help you in your business. So you'll be seeing more of me inside webinars like this. And beyond that, what I also do is run the salonbusiness.com, which is our sister brand to the Salon, to Mangomint, something that I started a few years ago, where I also publish a lot of resources and business-related resources to help you run your salon or spa. Which you will be hearing more about over the coming months. But really, again, today, what I want to make sure we get out of the time we have together is that you feel as equipped as possible to leverage forms in your business and leverage integrated forms. So what I want to cover is just like real brief on kind of what forms is and why we should use that and what type of forms we should use. And then also go into the platform and actually create a form together with you guys so we can kind of see how we do that. And then I'm going to go into some tips and tricks that I hope you will find helpful to get the most out of the platform and out of this feature. I hope that sounds okay. And just looking at the chat as well, it's great that we have a flow going. There's people from New York, there's people from everywhere in here. That's great to see. And I'm going to check out all the links that you're sharing there as well. That's super exciting. So keep that going in the chat as well. So what I will do towards the end of the session today is also to pause for questions. I believe I have some team members here today as well who might help out in the chat if there's some questions, but I'll make sure to reserve some time towards the end of the session so that we can cover any questions that you have based on what I'm sharing today. And I'm hoping we can do this in sort of 30 minutes. That might be optimistic. It might go a little bit longer. It depends also on how many questions we have. But that's the goal at least. So I hope we're ready to get started and to dive in. And just again, like real quick before we do, like what is forms actually? And what are the different types of forms that we can use in our business? So essentially, forms is a means for us to collect information about our clients and about appointments, and to store that and to process that in an effective way. And there's really like 3 different ways that we can collect forms and collect that information. Probably the most common one is that we ask our clients to submit information to us via form ahead of their appointment. This is probably the most common one that we use for like waiver forms and consent forms, and also for like service intake forms. So if we want, if we need more information from the client in order to conduct the service effectively, that we basically ask them as they book their appointment to submit a form with the information. So that's probably the most common one. The second one is also that staff can submit forms, right? So, treatment notes, soap forms, that kind of thing, so that staff can enter information about the client, about the appointment into the systems. And we can use forms for that, to store that information. And then the third use case would really be using what we call external forms, which essentially is something where you basically take a form and you can link to that form from your website, from your social media, or really anywhere. So it's not necessarily tied to an appointment, but we can use that to collect information from anyone, even if they don't necessarily have a booked appointment. And this is something that can be really helpful if we have, for example, more complex services where really like the service duration and the appointment will depend a lot on the needs of the client. So we cannot just have them book a time on our calendar, but we need to have them submit the form first so that we can then work with them in order to set up the appointment that is right for them. So those are the three different types, and we're going to go into that as well as we look through the platform, because obviously, as we talk about this, like collecting all that information, managing that, if we don't have a process for doing that, a system, a platform that can support us, this can get really messy. And the information also that we collect via forms can be really important for us also from like if something happens, right? We need to be like, if we have a dispute for some reason, which I hope we can stay out of, right? But this the information, the consents and so on that we collect in forms, we want to have that readily accessible, because that can really help us in those cases when that happens. So all that complexity is really something that Mangomint is trying to solve with the integrated forms feature. And as the name suggests, integrated is a great benefit. So it basically fits into all your existing processes. If you're using Mangomint today, I believe we have a mix in the audience today. Majority are existing users of Mangomint, I believe. But there could also be some people who are just testing the platform right now. But basically, when you use that as part of your everyday processes, it's easy to find the forms information. You have it all under one place. It really saves you a lot of administration time. And also from a client standpoint, having that integrated creates a much better integrated, seamless experience where information about what they need to submit through forms is part of their appointment reminders. The experience, the branded experience, is consistent through booking to forms and so on. So it creates a much nicer experience as well. So that's just a little bit of background on that. Let's actually dive in to the platform. So I'm going to be sharing my screen with you. Let's see. I hope that is coming up okay. Can you just give me a yes in the chat if you can see my screen? Perfect. Getting a thumbs up. Awesome. Great. So what I thought we'll do first, because we cannot use forms unless we have created what's called a forms template. So we're going to start with that and creating one together, and I'll show you how you do that basically. And then after that, we'll just take it from there and start to play around with that a bit so that you can see how we can do this. So just to be clear, so we're landing in the standard calendar view, and then I'm jumping into settings in order to start setting up my forms. So I click on just form templates, and then I land in here, which is basically where we manage all our form templates. So you'll see the one that already exists under this demo account that I created now for the purpose of this session today. And this is also where we create forms. So in order for you to create a forms template, you just go to add form template, and it will ask you to fill out the name for this form, also give it a description. So let's say we're going to do an intake form. We could do a facial intake form. And then we want to give that form a description. And also what we put in the description box is something that our clients will see. So you want to put something that, looks nice because the client will see it. So please complete the form, maybe. We could be a bit more creative, but let's go with that. So now we have the basics of the form set up. What you'll notice is that this form is currently disabled. Which means that I can work in here, I can do changes. No one will see this form whatsoever. So you can play around here and go a bit crazy. If it's the first time you're using forms, no one will see that. And then we're gonna, so I'm landing here on the details. So the first question basically that I'm asked is who is gonna fill out this form? So as I mentioned, as we started today, there's really like these three different ways. Either we have the clients filling it out ahead of the appointment, or we have a staff member completing the form, making treatment notes during the appointment most likely, or that anyone can really fill it out and we just use an external link where people can go to complete the form. And for the sake of this, I'm going to go with the more common one, which is that a client will fill out the form after they book the appointment. And the next question that we will then be asked is, how often do we need to fill this out? So you can choose here if this is kind of just a one-off, so it's like a consent or waiver form or something where you just need that the first time, so like for new clients, or is it something where you need to collect information ahead of each service? So if it's only one time you select that, let's stick with every time they book an appointment. So every time they book in, they will be asked to complete this form. Then we can decide, for which appointments do we want this form to be completed. And, if you want that for all appointments, which could make sense in some use cases, or if it's like for specific services that you want people to complete this form. So if we go to that, you're able to select either like a full service category or a specific service. So you might have a form that is relevant, like what we're creating now for all your facial treatments. So it would make sense for us that this form is something that should go out for any treatment that is booked and that is part of the facials category. So I'm going to select that. But you could also, if you have a specific service, maybe you're using specific chemical treatment or something in that where you need kind of a consent or something, then you could also specify that on specific service level. So that's that. I'm just looking over to the chat at the same time so I'm not missing something. So that's the basics basically for setting up the form. The next step that we're going to do is to start creating it. Like what's the information that we want to collect, right? So in order to do that, I'm going to jump into form fields here. This is where we basically decide what is the information that we want to have. So let's say for this facial intake form, we want to have first and last name in, and we can have this as a required field. Note, like you don't necessarily, in this case, since this is tied to an appointment, you don't necessarily need to collect first and last name, since you already have that information as part of the appointment. So when you add this to the form, when someone goes to fill that out, this will automatically be like pre-populated as they land on it, but it gives them an opportunity to update those details. Like if they misspelled their surname or something when they booked, they can make those changes as part of the form. Then let's say we want to collect an email address, and similar to this one, you have this option that you can connect this with your client profile, so that if people update the email address, so the email that they enter here as part of the form is different from what's on the profile, then that will override and update the profile with whatever they complete here. So we have field label and placeholder text. We'll look in a bit what the form looks like, and you'll see kind of how that plays out. But I think that works for now. It's descriptive, email, enter your email address. Then let's say we wanted to add some more, maybe a phone number. It's the same principles here, so I'm going to speed that up a little bit. Maybe we don't need that to be required. Then we probably want to add some more interesting things. So as you see here, there's many different options, right, for different types of information that we can collect. So let's say in this case for the facial treatment, we want to ask maybe about like allergies, if there's any allergies that we should be aware of, because maybe there's some common ones that we know is important for us to know about. In that case, I would go with a multiple choice question. So we could just call that allergies. And then you can enter your different options here. So maybe that's like nuts, essential oils. What else could people be allergic to? I don't know. Maybe we just add strong fragrance. Just have something like that. So you can obviously add more options in here. So let's do save on that. So we started to get some information in here. So I just want to show you kind of what this will look like as we start to build this. So you have this preview option just below. So if you jump over to that, we'll kind of see how our form starts to look. And basically what you see here is very much exactly what your client will see. I can see it's even picking up my purple brand color here on the button. And we can kind of see what that looks like. So most likely as you work in this tool and as you start creating forms, you will most likely be kind of hopping between those two modes, right? Where you're actually building it and asking, the questions and then seeing what that looks like. So that would be allergies. Maybe we want to have like more of an open question to kind of ask them for, what they want out of the appointment. So to do that, we have two different options for text, like a short answer, long answer. So we could leave this to a longer one to say something like what what do you want to address during the appointment. There's a misspelling there, but that's okay. We'll do save on that. What else? So maybe we also have, we can jump over to the preview just to see what that looks like. So we get a bigger text box. Maybe we also want to have like a policy that we want to approve. So in order to add the policy here, what I would do is go in and add like a title that we can just call a spa policy. Oops, I didn't get that, spa policy. And then we can add a bit of text describing what our policy is. So we'll use the text block option in here. We can just say, if you don't show up, you'll still be charged for the appointment, let's say. You might want to have something, more fleshed out there. And then we want them to approve to that, right? So we need to add like a, that they can tick that off. So there's the toggle feature. Let's add that in, saying I approve the spa policy. Okay, and we make that required, right? So when they submit the form, in order to get that over to us, they need to be okay with our spa policy. So let's do save on that. And start looking at the preview to see how that plays out. So we now get like a header, a bit of text, and you see how you can kind of start designing this, and you can really add as much as you want into those forms. And there's a lot of different options here. Let's maybe say, because in some cases, like you might need even a signature, right? And not just approver. So we could add a signature onto there, and we make that required. For some services, you might even want to like get a copy of their ID card. So you could use like the image PDF upload and call that like upload a copy of your ID, for example. And we can save that. So we're starting to get quite a big form here. So I just saw in the comments that screen sharing is not updating. Do we still have that problem, or is it coming through? Okay, I refreshed, did the job. Okay, I'm just hopping back and forth here. You following along okay? Okay, awesome. But let's say we look at the design and we see that maybe, we would prefer that the ID is uploaded before where we sign. We can go back into form fields, and there's this little reorder link here, which starts to appear as soon as you add more than 2 things to this list. So if I click on the reorder, you can actually like drag and drop that. So we might say, actually, we want the ID to be uploaded, and then the last thing we do is to sign, for example. And you can really move anything here around to make sure that it fits the order that you want it to be like. So there we go. That's the intake form. So let's say we're now happy with this. This looks good. We're happy with the fields that we want to collect. It's set up correctly, so it's for our facial services that this will be sent out every time for a new appointment. And we're ready to go ahead and actually activate this. So far we've only been in the disabled mode, so no one can see it. When we click on enable here, let's do that. We also get a prompt with what will happen here. Because basically, as we're now tying this to all the facial treatments, they will, clients who book in for a facial will be informed they need to complete the form. This link will be included in all the automated messages and so on. So you can read that, which basically means this is active now, and this form will start to collect the information as people book in. So we just confirm. We can see here also on the different forms that we have which ones are enabled and disabled. So it's now active, and we can start working with the form. So let's just do a test to see how that works. If I'll jump back over to the calendar, and let's just book someone in. We can go with me. So let's pick myself, and let's book a facial. So again, we selected a full category, right, that this form should be active for, so it doesn't really matter which one. We could just go with an express facial, and we'll just go and book the appointment. So we now have that on there. What you'll see on this appointment is a little pen icon in the corner here, right? Which basically indicates that there's a form associated with this appointment that haven't been completed yet. So the client needs to complete that, right, when they come in. Hopefully they will complete it, so that's done. There's obviously the scenario where that doesn't happen, that I think for us, or if you're working with this, is quite a common one. They come in and they haven't booked yet. Exactly, Morgan. So if they haven't done that, we will basically ask them to do it, and we can do that in a few different ways. So you'll see on the client here, when I'm on the appointment, you see that this form needs to be completed. So all you need to do is just click on it, and you have two options. One is to fill out now. So if you have a tablet in the Salon or something, you can open it up, and obviously this works in the mobile app as well, and you can have the client fill it out on the spot. Or you can send the request as well. So you could just go to that and then use the client's phone number, or if they prefer another phone number, in order to send the link where they can go and complete it. And I can see, actually, because I used my own account, that I have received a email here as well, just when booking in the appointment. Let's see if I can see the camera. If you can see that, so that's the email that arrives, which is basically informing me that I have been booked in for an appointment and that there's a form in here for me to complete. So let me try to do that. I'll do complete form. And when I click on that, it basically takes me over to the form that we just designed. I'm not sure how well that shows on there. So let me complete that quickly. Allergies, nuts. What do we say? I approve the policy, and I will sign, and I hit submit. So now I've submitted that, and I get a little thank you on the screen there. And for those of you who are awake, you will have seen also that something happened on the calendar instantly. So you see a green tick here now on this one. This little pen that we had on the appointment is gone. So basically, as the client comes in, they're all set. You can just click on the form here, and it will show up there with my little signature with the details that we asked them to complete, and it's there, and it's stored on the appointment. Also, if you were to go into the client's list, or to the client specifically, you will also see that on the timeline. So if you go to and filter by forms, you will see that the facial intake form is there. So that's an easy way of also finding it on the client specifically. Yeah, so that's it. Like, that's how that works. It's pretty easy, right? Let's look if we have some questions coming through. I'm seeing, can we have multiple forms attached to one service? Absolutely, you can. And you might even have some that is for a category, right, and one for a specific service. And they will just be added onto there. And we're not gonna, and if you do that as well, it's worth adding that we're not sending out like multiple emails to the clients in order to complete all the different forms. But this is set up in like a nice flow, so that they get one, complete the form, and they won't barely notice that it's like different forms that they're going through to complete, but that's all like one seamless process. Cool. Just looking at if there's some other questions as well. Can it be used to update my client's profile? So it can. So as you saw, let's go back into it actually. Which one we're working on? This one, right? So for the fields that exist also on the standard fields on the client profile, they can update, and you saw we could even toggle that on, right? So that first name, email. I believe the ones we can update are first name, email, phone number, and also birthday is one that is in there. That is also a standard one. So those we can use in order to update the profile information directly from the form. So I see a question, can we use this instead of, so Cleo is asking, can we use this instead of like type form? So let me come back to that question actually. Because yes, we can, and I'll show you in a moment like how that works. Okay, so this is how we create the form, and this is kind of how that works and what that looks like on the calendar as people complete them. The next use case that I wanted to take you through as well is when a member of staff. So this is, again, it's something that is sent out to the client after they book, but some forms we want the staff to complete. So I just, for the sake of time, created a SOAP form, more of a standard format for that one in here. So the only difference when we set that up is just, again, we choose staff member here instead of when a client books the appointment. You can see it's a bit grayed out now, and I can't change the type of form it is unless I disable this one. So you can't do it on an active one. So you need to go in and disable if you want to change that. So here we have one. I believe I actually had on the calendar an appointment that was booked with a SOAP form. Let's see. So for example, here we have a massage treatment because this one was set up to be for all the massage treatments. If I go to that, I can see here that there's two forms attached to this appointment. One was an intake form that the client has completed, so that is ticked off, right? But the client is about to come in now, and there's still a SOAP form here that needs to be completed. So what a member of staff or the service provider would do in order to complete this form is simply to click on this one and go fill out. So that's just how you can access that form during the appointment, add in the details. And again, most likely this will be done on a mobile phone and not in the on the reception computer like this. Let's just go with that. So we can go in and we submit that. The signature is required. Let's do that. So now that one has been submitted. And you'll see this little pen icon that we had there was gone, and the forms are completed. So it works in a similar way, and that's how you normally would access that, is from the appointment as you do the treatment. And you can also control which members of staff should be able to do this. So as you go into settings, staff members and permissions. So if we can go into one and you'll have permissions, if you scroll down here, you'll have settings also for forms, so you can control if they should be able to see forms and have access to that. So that's for how staff members typically would access that. The third option that I wanted to cover as well is what we call external forms. So the ones that we can kind of use for many different things, link to from our website, and so on. And I created an example here as well, which could be a good use case, like a color correction. So if you have someone coming in for a color correction, like the amount of time you will need for that really depends on the state of their hair, right? And like what they want you to do. And you might not want someone to just book in for that without you having that level of detail, but you want to have that information so that you can plan that appointment. So as we set those up, it's just the third setting in here that this is for anyone. And when we go with that, and you'll design the form as we went through earlier, you'll get a link for sharing. So this one could go on, again, your website, or wherever is the right place for you to have that. So we could just maybe we'll do let's do John Smith maybe. Actually, I don't. Let's just do John test. So we do that. Yes, medium hair, shoulder length, and then we can describe something and upload a picture. But let's just go through and we submit that. So this is what the client would go through, and you can see this is also like branded with how I now set up the branding for this demo, but according to your business. And this is a form that you can link out to then anywhere. So working in a very similar way to like if you were to use a third-party forms provider like Typeform or the examples that were mentioned there. Okay, you cannot see that browser tab. Sorry about that. So now you only got the thank you message. So basically, I was just going and I cannot. So let's show it again. So that's what it looks like when it's done. That's what's there we go. That's what it looks like as I was filling it out. So probably the question that is asked now is like, okay, so if we have this form and we're linking to that from our website, we have it in different places. Like, how do we actually like keep track of forms that are coming into the business, right? Because it's not on the appointment as the other cases we looked at. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. So one is just to go into, okay, I'm switching between tabs. That should be right. One is to go into form submissions. So this was the John Smith example that I just did, which is showing up. So here we can see all the forms basically that have been submitted. And if you want to see like one specific one, like if you're using an external one, you can also go to options where you can filter on that. So let's say we only wanted to see the color correction ones. Then you will be able to see specifically like which, the ones that have come in. What you might want to do as well is to make sure that you're notified when this happens. When you need to go and check this. And this is managed under messages. So like where we set up automated messages. So under settings and automated messages, we have all these automations that we can set up for when an appointment is booked, canceled, etc. And in here, you'll also have an automation that you can set up for when a form is submitted. So the way I have this set up right now is just so if someone submits a form, I will get an email notification telling me that this form has been submitted, so that I'm aware. Good. That was quite a lot. I think I managed it almost like on the half-hour mark that I wanted to do. So I'm just going to stop sharing here and just like see if there's some more questions that has come up. So let me jump over here. So let me I'm just going to look so I haven't missed anything higher up in the chat. So one here from Sarah, is there a limit to how many forms we can send out each month? So we don't have a limit on that. So we can use many different forms, and there's no specific limit. I have a virtual location. Can this be used also with virtual locations? So absolutely, like there's nothing specifically here that ties this into a specific location. So if you're using a virtual one, everything will work pretty much as it would for a local one, and you can use the forms for that as well. So that shouldn't be a problem. Awesome. So I hope you found some value in this, and also that you kind of see the power of using this again, like getting this all under one roof. Makes it super easy to manage forms in your business, and creates this nice integrated experience also for your clients. So, you know, if you're not using forms already, like if you're interested in running with forms, you'll find that under, like when you're logged into your Mangomint account, under your name up there, subscriptions. If you go in there, that's where you also see forms and how you can add that to your account if that is something that is interesting. And so, yeah, that's what I had for you today. It was really exciting doing this, and I look forward to doing more of it. So already next week, I will be on here again, and we're talking gift cards in the next session. And make sure you also check that out. So we have, you know, the feature spotlight. You can see what the next one is coming up under the webinars page on Mangomint, so that we will be doing more of this to, you know, try to equip you with some tips and tricks so that you can get the most out of the tool. So yeah, thanks everyone. And thanks for the great engagement in the chat as well. This was a lot of fun, and I'm already looking forward to next week. So with that, thank you, Betsy, as well. Thank you, Crystal. Have a fantastic rest of the day, and I look forward to meeting you again here soon. Bye, guys.